There is a voice that is never silent. There is a presence that is never absent. And yet, for all its omnipresence, the world sleeps on, unaware of the very substance of its own being. We have sought for peace in the outer, for fulfillment in the transient, and for answers in the minds of men, only to find ourselves returning, again and again, to the same emptiness. But what if I were to tell you that the kingdom of heaven is not a destination, but a realized state of consciousness? What if the very peace that passes all understanding is not something to be earned, but something to be recognized as the very core of your identity? This is not a teaching to be believed, but a reality to be experienced. This is the journey into the Christ consciousness, the awakening to the truth of your own I, amness. This meditation is not an activity you perform. It is an activity the infinite performs as you. It is the stilling of the personal sense, the human will, the frantic seeking mind, so that the eternal I am may announce itself. We are not here to build a light, but to withdraw the bushel that has hidden the light that has always been shining. Therefore, let us enter this sacred work not as petitioners, but as beholding the already finished kingdom. Close your eyes not to shut out the world, but to open to the universe within. Release every thought, every concept, every image you have ever held about yourself or about God. Be still, be silent, and in that profound silence, listen. Listen not for a sound, but for the soundless sound. Wait upon this presence not as a servant, but as the very Son awaiting the conscious embrace of the Father. And when you feel this grace, this tangible touch of the infinite upon your own awareness, let that be the moment you consciously unite with the One. This is the great transition from the man of earth to the Christ of God. Now, as we conclude this sacred sharing, if these words have resonated as a remembrance within you, if you feel the call to go deeper into this practice of the presence, then let that inner impulse find outer expression. Let your engagement become a sacred act, a signal of your commitment to this path. Consecrate this awakening by subscribing to this channel, that this thread of light may continue to connect and guide you. And if you are ready to acknowledge this inner shift, to bear witness to this dawning light, then comment with the number 11. Let it be your silent, powerful testament that you are answering the call from within. Indeed, this is the great secret whispered across the ages, the truth that has been waiting not in some distant heaven, but in the very core of your present awareness. The kingdom of God is not a location you will travel to after this life. It is a dimension of consciousness that you can step into in this very moment. It is the fundamental reality of your being, the substance of all that is, operating on a frequency that the physical senses, left to their own devices, simply cannot register. We have been conditioned to believe that peace, wholeness, and abundance are states we must achieve through struggle and accumulation, that they exist outside of us as prizes to be won. This is the grand illusion, the veil that keeps us wandering in a desert of our own making, searching for a mirage while standing atop a spring of living water. Consider the simple, yet profound, experience of anxiety. It creates a tangible reality, does it not? Your heart races, your mind constructs elaborate scenarios of lack or disaster, and the entire world seems to contract into a threatening place. In that moment, the reality of anxiety is all-consuming. But where does it exist? Is it in the room around you? Is it in the molecules of the air? No. It is a state of consciousness, a lens through which you are interpreting the neutral events of the universe. Now, consider a moment of sudden, unexpected peace. Perhaps you are walking in nature, and for no reason at all, a deep silence falls upon you. The same trees, the same sky, are now radiant with a presence of tranquility. The external world has not changed. The internal faculty of perception has shifted. You have, for an instant, dipped your awareness into the kingdom. You have tuned your receiver from the static of fear to the clear signal of being. This is why the Master said, "The kingdom of God is within you." He was not pointing to a physical location inside your body, but to a dimension of awareness that is your true identity. We spend our lives decorating the outer rooms of our existence, seeking better jobs, more harmonious relationships, greater possessions, believing that this will make the inner chamber glorious. But the inner chamber, the Holy of Holies, is already and eternally glorious. It is already perfect, already whole, already one with the infinite source. Our work is not to build that chamber, but to remove the debris of personal sense that blocks its entrance. We are not becoming the Christ. We are ceasing to be the thing that is not the Christ. We are shedding the false identity of the limited, struggling mortal to reveal the immortal identity that was never touched by any problem, any sin, or any disease. Think of your daily life. You face a challenge, perhaps a difficult conversation you must have, or a financial obligation that seems overwhelming. The human mind, the personal sense, immediately kicks into gear. It replays past failures. It imagines future confrontations. It weaves a narrative of me against them, or me against circumstances. This is the activity that obscures the kingdom. It is the frantic noise that drowns out the eternal melody. The practice, then, is to pause right there in the midst of the mental storm. It is to consciously withdraw the authority you have given to that noisy mind and to become still. In that stillness, you are not seeking an answer from the limited mind. You are abiding in the space where the answer already is. You are shifting your reliance from the problem solver to the presence in which no problem truly exists. This is not a passive resignation. It is the most active state of being. It is an act of supreme spiritual authority. You are declaring, "My good does not come from this situation or that person. My peace is not dependent on the outcome of this conversation. I am, right now, the very embodiment of the peace and intelligence of God." This is not an affirmation to make something true, but a recognition of what has always been true. You are aligning your awareness with the kingdom that is already present. The situation may not instantly dissolve, but your relationship to it is transformed. You are no longer a victim of it. You are the consciousness through which the harmony of God is brought to light. You begin to see solutions where before you only saw obstacles. You find a grace in your speech that was not there before. You discover a resilience that does not come from personal will, but from an infinite source. This is the kingdom in expression. It is the Christ consciousness, no longer a theological concept, but a living, breathing reality, governing your every step, your every word, and your every moment from the inside out. This recognition of the ever-present kingdom immediately presents us with our greatest challenge and our only true task, the cultivation of a profound and intentional stillness. For if the kingdom is within, a constant, humming reality, then the noise of our own minds is the only thing that can possibly obscure it. We are like someone standing on the shore of a mighty ocean, listening to the roar of the waves, yet trying to hear the subtle, beautiful melody being played on a single flute a mile away. The problem is not that the melody isn't real. The problem is the overwhelming volume of the competing sound. Our internal world is a cacophony of past regrets and future anxieties, a relentless commentary on everything we see and experience. This ceaseless mental activity is the bushel that hides the light. It is the storm that churns the surface of the water, preventing us from seeing the perfect, tranquil depths below. Therefore, stillness is not merely a pleasant state of relaxation. It is the essential, practical, and non-negotiable portal to this higher awareness. It is the active, deliberate process of withdrawing our attention from the outer noise and the inner chatter. Think of it as turning down the dial on the world to hear the whisper of the universe. This is not an escape from life. It is the way to engage with life at its most fundamental and powerful level. In your own daily experience, you can see how this works. When you are faced with a difficult decision, what is the first thing the world tells you to do? It says, think harder, analyze more, weigh all the options. And so you plunge into the storm of thought, often becoming more confused, more conflicted, and more anxious. The mind, left to its own devices, can only rearrange the furniture of its own limited knowledge and past conditioning. It cannot access the infinite intelligence that is the source of all true knowing. Now, consider the alternative. You have a crucial decision to make. Instead of frantically thinking, you consciously stop. You find a quiet space, you close your eyes, and you let go of the need to figure it out. You release the entire problem. You cease to be the problem solver, and you become the beholder. You enter into a state of silent listening. This is not a blank, vacant state of mind. It is a state of acute, vibrant alertness, but one that is free from the compulsion to label, judge, or control. In this sacred silence, something remarkable begins to happen. The churning waters of your mind begin to settle. The sediment of fear and personal desire slowly sinks, and the water becomes clear. And in that clarity, an impulse may arise. It is not a loud, shouting voice. It is a gentle, authoritative nudge. It is not a thought from your mind, but a knowing in your heart. It is a spontaneous clarity that feels inherently right, a solution that appears with a sense of peace, not frantic certainty. This is the activity of the infinite. This is the Christ consciousness operating as your own awareness when you finally get your personal sense out of the way. This practice of stillness is the very foundation of true meditation. It is not about achieving a special state, but about being in your natural state prior to the turmoil of the world and the self. It begins with the simple, yet radical, act of attention. You can practice this right now as you read these words. Notice the sensations in your body. Notice the sounds in the room. But instead of getting caught in the story about them, my foot is asleep, that car is too loud, simply notice the raw sensation, the pure sound, without the mental commentary. You are, for a moment, pure awareness, not a person having an experience. This is the gateway. In the midst of a stressful workday, you can turn away from the computer screen, take 3 conscious breaths, and for just 20 seconds, feel the life that is animating your body. You are not trying to change anything. You are simply shifting your identity from the one who is stressed to the one who is aware of the stress. In that tiny gap, the kingdom reveals itself not as a theory, but as a palpable presence of peace that was there all along underneath the frantic activity. This is how we practice. Not for hours on a mountaintop, but in 1,000 tiny moments throughout the day, we withdraw the authority we have given to the noisy self, and we abide as the silent, witnessing presence. We are not creating the portal. We are simply removing the obstructions that have always blocked it, until one day we realize we are no longer visiting the kingdom in moments of silence, but we are living from it, and the noise of the world is now the transient visitor to our eternal, silent self. And so we come to the very heart of the obstruction, the central illusion that generates all the noise and fuels the sense of separation from the kingdom, the belief in a separate, independent, personal self. This I that we have spent a lifetime building, defending, and improving. This collection of memories, preferences, traumas, and accomplishments is not the fundamental reality of our being. It is a construct, a wave upon the ocean that has mistakenly come to believe in its own autonomy, its own existence apart from the vast, deep body of water from which it is formed and to which it will return. This sense of a separate self is the primary veil. It is the filter through which all of life is perceived, and it colors every experience with a tinge of personal gain or loss, praise or blame, desire or fear. To believe in this self as the ultimate reality is to be forever trapped in a tiny, fragile boat on the surface of the ocean, at the mercy of every storm, never knowing the profound security and peace of being the ocean itself. Consider how this plays out in the most ordinary moments of your day. You are driving your car and another driver cuts you off. What is the immediate, visceral reaction? It is not a neutral observation of one vehicle changing lanes in proximity to another. It is a personal affront. How dare he do that to me? The entire event is instantly processed through the filter of the separate self. This I feels threatened, disrespected, and angry. It tells a story about the other driver's character and your own victimhood. This is the activity of the personal sense, and it creates a world of conflict and strife out of a simple traffic maneuver. Now, imagine the same event, but from the perspective of the ocean, not the wave. There is still the same physical reality. One car moves abruptly, but the reaction is not personal. There is no me to be offended. There is simply a clear, intelligent response to a situation. Perhaps a gentle adjustment of the steering wheel to create a safe distance, devoid of the internal narrative of grievance. The peace remains unbroken because the illusory self, which is the only thing that ever can be disturbed, was not engaged. This personal sense is the source of all our suffering. It is the one that feels lack because it is a limited concept cut off from the infinite source. It is the one that feels lonely because it sees itself as an isolated entity in a universe of other isolated entities. It is the one that gets sick because it identifies solely with a physical form that is inherently transient. Your true being, the Christ consciousness, knows no lack, no loneliness, and is not subject to the beliefs of the physical world. It is the very substance of wholeness, connection, and eternal life. The entire spiritual journey, then, is the gentle, persistent, and glorious unraveling of this illusion. It is not a battle to be fought, but a misperception to be corrected. We are not trying to kill a self. We are realizing that there never truly was a separate self to begin with. We are like someone waking from a dream, not by destroying the dream figures, but by simply opening our eyes to the reality of the sunlit room. You can practice this realization in every interaction. When you feel a surge of anger or hurt in a conversation with a loved one, pause for just a second and ask, who is it that is feeling this? Do not analyze it. Just pose the question to your awareness. You will see that the feeling is happening, but the solid, separate I that claims ownership of it begins to lose its substance. It is seen as a passing cloud in the vast sky of your awareness. When you achieve a great success and feel a rush of pride, witness that too. To whom does this pride come? You will find that the one who is aware of the pride is itself quiet, vast, and unmoved by the temporary euphoria. This witnessing awareness is your true self. It is the Christ. Every time you do this, you are withdrawing reality from the phantom of the personal sense and reinvesting it in the one I am. You stop feeding the illusion with your attention, and like any phantom, it begins to lose its power to frighten and control you. Your problems, which seemed so monumental to the personal I, begin to be seen in their true light as challenges occurring within the dream, which cannot touch the dreamer who is now awakening. The fear of death itself dissolves, for you realize that what you truly are cannot be born and therefore cannot die. The separate self was a temporary formation, a thought in the infinite mind of God, but your reality is the mind itself, eternal and without beginning or end. This is the ultimate freedom. This is the peace that comes when the wave knows itself not as a temporary form, but as the eternal, undifferentiated substance of the ocean. As the clamor of the personal self begins to recede, its grip on your identity loosening with every moment of witnessed stillness, a new faculty of perception awakens. This is not an awakening of something new, but the remembrance of a capacity that has always been present, waiting in the silence you have cultivated. We move from the act of quieting the mind to the art of profound listening. This is the practice of attuning ourselves to the soundless sound, to the voice that is not a voice, the communication that bypasses the ears and speaks directly to the core of our being. The world trains us to listen for loud, obvious signals, the ring of a telephone, the shout of a command, the blare of a siren. But the language of the infinite is a subtle, constant hum underlying all of creation. It is the silent harmony behind the symphony, the white space that gives form to the letters, the consciousness in which all thoughts arise and fall. To hear this, we must refine our hearing to a degree of sensitivity the world never requires of us. Think of a time when you were in a deep, natural sleep. Suddenly a soft sound, perhaps the faint cry of a child from another room, pierces that sleep and brings you to immediate, alert wakefulness. Yet, a much louder sound, like a continuous truck rumbling down a distant highway, is integrated into the background of your dream and does not disturb you. Why? Because your entire being was attuned to the significant sound, the one that carried meaning and called for a response. The practice of listening for the soundless sound is precisely this. It is a spiritual attunement, a setting of our entire consciousness to the frequency of meaning, of divine impulse, rather than to the volume of the world's noise. It is learning to discern the faint, yet powerful, cry of truth from the chaotic rumble of fear and desire. This listening is an activity of the heart, not the head. It is a feeling, an intuitive knowing, a sudden clarity that arrives without a linear thought process. You may be walking through your day, perhaps feeling a subtle unease or a vague sense of seeking, and you turn within, not with a question, but with a silent, open receptivity. You are not asking, "What should I do?" You are simply stating, "I am here. I am listening." And in that open space, an impression may form. It could be a sudden, gentle pull to call a certain person. It might be a spontaneous feeling of compassion that washes over you for someone you were previously judging. It could be a quiet, unwavering certainty about a decision that your logical mind was still debating. This is the soundless sound making itself known as your own knowing. It does not argue with the mind. It simply presents itself as the truth of the moment, and the mind, when it is still, recognizes it and acquiesces. This is how the Christ consciousness guides and governs our experience. It is not a distant dictator issuing commands, but the very fabric of our awareness, revealing the next harmonious step in the divine pattern. The human mind plans and worries and tries to control the entire journey, but the infinite intelligence within only ever reveals the next step, illuminated as if by a lamp at your feet. Your only responsibility is to be listening for that illumination, to be attentive to that gentle nudge. You are practicing this when you pause before speaking in a tense conversation and listen for the words that would bring peace instead of the words that would prove you right. You are practicing this when you feel a resistance to a certain path, and instead of forcing your way through, you stop and wait for an inner green light. You are learning to distinguish between the loud, frantic voice of personal will, which is often fueled by fear, greed, or a desire for approval, and the quiet, authoritative voice of spiritual intuition, which always speaks in the language of peace, wholeness, and love. The personal self is always shouting, trying to get its way. The Christ is forever whispering, reminding you of the way you already are. As you cultivate this practice, you begin to live a life that is guided from within. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, not because of frantic scheduling, but because you heeded a quiet suggestion to take a different route to work. You find the perfect words to say, not because you rehearsed them, but because you were silent and allowed them to flow through you. Your life ceases to be a constant struggle of a separate self trying to manipulate a hostile world, and becomes a graceful dance of the one life expressing itself in, as, and through your unique form. You are no longer a separate listener trying to hear God. You are the very activity of God listening to itself. And in that recognition, every moment becomes a conversation with the divine, and every experience becomes a sacrament. This profound shift from striving to listening, from the chaos of the personal will to the quiet authority of inner knowing, reveals the true nature of our journey. It is not a path of acquisition where we laboriously gather spiritual merits, special powers, or secret knowledge from outside ourselves. Such a pursuit only strengthens the very sense of a separate self that is the root of the problem. The self that seeks to acquire is the self that feels it lacks, and it can only ever find more lack. The truth is far more glorious and infinitely more simple. Awakening is not a process of becoming something you are not. It is a process of remembering what you have always been. It is the dawning recognition of a truth so fundamental that it was hidden in plain sight, obscured only by the frantic activity of a mind that believed it was separate from its source. The Christ consciousness is not a prize to be won at the end of a long pilgrimage. It is the forgotten identity of the pilgrim himself. Consider a simple, powerful analogy. Imagine a crown prince raised from infancy by humble woodsmen, completely unaware of his royal birth. He lives a life of simple toil, believing himself to be a commoner. He may feel deep within a strange longing for something more, a sense that he doesn't quite belong, but he has no framework to understand it. He may even strive to improve his situation, to become the best woodsman in the land, to acquire more land, to build a finer hut. But none of these accomplishments ever touch the deep, inner sense of incongruity. Then, one day, a royal emissary arrives, presents the ancient proofs, and reveals his true identity. In a single shattering moment, he does not become a prince. He remembers that he is one. His entire past is instantly recontextualized. The longing is explained. The feeling of not belonging makes perfect sense. His life from that point forward is not about acquiring princeliness. It is about unacquiring the habits, beliefs, and self-perceptions of the woodsman. It is about learning to think, act, and live in alignment with the royal identity that was always his. This is our exact situation. We are the princes and princesses of the spiritual realm, living in the forgetful dream of being merely human. The teachings of the masters, the moments of grace, the inner whisperings, these are the emissaries arriving to remind us of our true lineage. The feeling of lack, the sense of searching for a home you cannot find, that deep, abiding divine discontent. This is not a sign of failure. It is the echo of your true self, the muffled memory of your royal birth, calling you to wake up. The practice, then, is to stop trying to build a better hut and to start listening for the emissary's voice. It is to cease the striving and to simply be until the being itself reveals its own majestic nature. You can observe this in your own moments of peace. When you are truly happy, truly at peace, is it because you have just acquired a new possession or achieved a major goal? Often, those moments bring only a fleeting satisfaction, quickly followed by the anxiety of potentially losing what was gained. But consider those unexpected moments of sheer joy, watching a sunset, laughing with a child, being completely absorbed in a creative act. In those instants, the seeking mind falls away. You are not thinking, I am a person enjoying a sunset. You are the enjoyment. The separate self has receded, and what remains is the pure experience of being alive, of being one with the moment. In that cessation of the seeker, you have, for a moment, remembered your true nature. You have stepped out of the woodsman's identity and inhabited your princely consciousness. The peace you felt was not created by the sunset. The sunset was the occasion for you to stop creating the noise that obscured the peace that was always there. This is why the spiritual path is an inward journey of subtraction, not addition. We are not adding light to a dark room. We are removing the layers of dirt from the window pane, allowing the sun that has always been shining outside to flood the room with its illumination. Every moment of stillness, every act of surrendering a personal problem, every time we choose love over fear, we are not earning a reward. We are simply wiping away another layer of grime, allowing the inherent, brilliant light of our own Christ nature to shine forth more clearly, until we finally realize, with awe and wonder, that we are not the dirty window at all, but the sun itself. This remembrance, this dawning awareness of our true identity as the very light of the world, cannot remain a passive realization. A beautiful secret we keep for quiet moments of contemplation. To know the truth is to be compelled to live it. The final and most glorious stage of this journey is the conscious moment. by moment practice of union, the active integration of this divine awareness into the very fabric of our human experience. This is where the abstract becomes concrete, where the infinite touches the finite, and where the Christ consciousness ceases to be a concept and becomes the functional reality governing our lives. It is the understanding that we are not here to escape our humanity, but to imbue it with divinity, to become the vehicle through which the impersonal, unconditional love of God finds personal expression in the world. This is not a state of perfection, but a state of conscious partnership, a constant, loving surrender of the personal will to the divine impulse. Think of a master musician and their instrument. The flute does not produce its own music. Its purpose is to remain hollow, clean, and perfectly aligned so that the breath of the musician can flow through it unimpeded, creating beautiful melodies. The flute does not struggle to compose the symphony. It simply yields itself completely to the will of the one who plays it. In this analogy, you are the flute. Your mind, your body, your emotions, your circumstances, these are the instrument. The Christ consciousness, the I Am, is the master musician. The practice of conscious union is the daily, hourly discipline of hollowing yourself out, releasing your personal agendas, your fears, your limited perspectives, and aligning your entire being to be a clear, open channel for this divine breath. The music that results is not your personal creation. It is the expression of the infinite, playing the unique melody of your life.